In this episode of the Business Mentor podcast, we sit down with Jared Willis. Jared is the co-founder and visionary entrepreneur behind Liven Cyprus, a brand that's redefining conscious living, wellness, and community on the island. Jared, alongside his business partner and co-founder Andreas Markou, share a passion for nature, sustainability, and meaningful connection. Jared and Andreas have created more than just a lifestyle brand. They've cultivated a movement through thoughtfully created products, including essential oils, cold-pressed seed and nut oils, and alternative flowers. They also offer immersive experiences, workshops, and a growing community. Liven Cyprus is inspiring people to live with greater intention and purpose. We dive into their journey, how it all began, their challenges in opening up a business as a non-EU citizen, since Jared is originally from America, and the amazing opportunities for the gastronomy sector of Cyprus on how their products can be used to create uniqueness in flavor and taste. This episode is filled with powerful insights for entrepreneurs and the ones that want to do something different that makes an impact. Welcome to the Business Mentor podcast. Jared, good to see you.
Hi, George. Thank you for having us.
My pleasure, man. My pleasure. It's amazing to be in your space. I know you've had a very exciting journey, 15 years in the Arab world, and you come now to a hybrid Arab world because Cyprus is a bit of a hybrid culture. So tell us about your experience and how you ended up in Cyprus now.
Well, I first visited Cyprus in 2003 and 2004 when I was working in the Middle East. I've done a bunch of different hats in my life, and sort of one chapter leads to the next. I guess it's my karma, but a lot of my life I've spent in this region, in the Middle East, and visited Cyprus by accident as a tourist with some groups. I think in 2019 when I visited, it was the first time that I rented a car and drove around the mountains. I went to a lot of small agritourism or businesses, you could say, in the agricultural sector, wineries, honey, olive oil. And I met a lot of young people that had either taken over their family business or had moved from the cities. And I was really impressed with the vibe. I felt something. I think I wasn't ready to move to Cyprus at that point, but I saw that there was some community here that had the same values as me. And at that point, I was working as a consultant in the Gulf countries, focused on entrepreneurship in the sense that my specialty at the end of my career as a consultant was helping the countries with their public policy issues on how to diversify from income only from oil, how to empower the young people to take the risk to start their own businesses, what were the right sectors that they should focus on, how to tie it up between government policy and specifically what foreign companies they were bringing into Cyprus, what expertise, what companies had something to add to the local economy, and how would that fit in with the entrepreneurs and with the government, how they were spending their money. I came to the unfortunate conclusion at the end of my work there that a lot of this was PR, and I wasn't interested. It was a crossroads. I wasn't interested in being a PR agent. And I wanted to do something for myself. And so I did start the business in Oman for a few years, and then was looking for a home that I could settle in and could grow the business to the vision that we want to take it to. And after investigating a few different places, Cyprus was the obvious choice.
So before we delve deeper into that, then tell me, what advice would you give to young entrepreneurs wanting to start their own business? The why behind it? When
I was a consultant in Kuwait, a young man came to me and he asked for my advice. And he had come back from abroad with a nice degree, and he was thinking about starting his own business or maybe working for the government. And he said, "What do you think I should do?" And I said, "Well, these are the challenges and the ups and downs that you'll face if you start your own business. But the positives of doing it in Kuwait, as far as I see it, are X, Y, Z." And I said, he said, "But my parents said if I work for the government, that's job security for life." And I said, for me, job security is knowing, first of all, that I don't need much money to live on. And when you're an entrepreneur, you learn to live on not that much money sometimes. I said, second of all, it's knowing that you have skills and you have connections, that you can reinvent yourself, you can go somewhere else, you can try different things, you'll be able to make a living, You'll have people that you can call for favors, and you'll be able to survive and enjoy your life, even if you have some periods where you maybe don't have that much income. I said, if you work for the government, I said, you don't get many skills. You don't really develop a work ethic. Your connections are not going to be worth much later on. If something happens to the government and the government has, like the United States, the government gets gutted, those people aren't going to be able to help you. And I said, you get used to an easy salary that it will be hard to adjust to a different lifestyle from. So I said, actually, in some ways, the best job security is no job security, because that will keep you hungry.
It reminds me of Steve Jobs' quote where he says, choose something you love and that you're passionate about, because it's going to be tough. And if you don't love it, it's even tougher. I know you've had quite a few obstacles created by our own country here. So tell me about your experience with starting in Cyprus. How has that been?
Well, I think that it's very lucky that was one of the things that I didn't really investigate when I was studying Cyprus. I came here 3 years ago, and I looked very carefully and systematically at, could I find the raw materials that we needed for the business? Is anyone else doing it the way we wanted to do it? And were there people to work with? What I was facing in Oman was that I was we were by ourselves. And, to be successful in this business, you need to have a community of suppliers, a community of people that can be customers, and a community of partners, restaurants, and other creative people that will take the products and know what to do with them. All those three areas, it was just a flow state. Everything, one thing led to the next, and I was like, it's go gung-ho for Cyprus. What I didn't do was look at the business environment. I didn't look at the banks. I didn't look at the rules for non-Europeans. I didn't do any of that. And it's a good thing I didn't, because I probably would have been discouraged from it to some extent. I won't name the bank chain. I first someone said, you should go open your bank account. So I went in there and I said, hi, I'm American. I'm here to open a bank account, and I've just come from Oman, and I'm planning on setting up this business, and this is our Instagram account, so you see that it's legitimate. She said to me, oh, I think you're the first person who actually wants to set up a legitimate business in Cyprus. And then she said, oh, we can't handle this. This is too much paper, too complicated. You have to go. And so it was like a whole long headache that led to lawyers and led to other situations. And yeah, we faced many obstacles, and I've now come to understand more why these obstacles are. They're deep rooted. They go back to what happened 10 years ago with the banks, and there's reasons for everything. And I think that it's just some of our circumstances fell a bit in the cracks, and the system doesn't know how to deal with it. This is kind of a bootstrap business. It's not something. Spending a lot of money on lawyers is not a good use of capital for us at this point. So we've sort of just stumbled through it. But at this point, I think we're legitimate. Everything is properly registered, and we have all our paperwork, and that's behind us.
That's great. So what is your mission and vision with Liven then?
In a global sense, I want to do something unique here in Cyprus that is innovative in terms of this type of business worldwide. And we'd like to do it in a way that impacts the ecosystem here in Cyprus, and also can inspire people to, I don't want to say copycat, but people to say that this is a viable business approach to this industry in other places. And the reason we want to do it is because it's better for people than what is currently being produced. The way the industry works now, it's either very, very big producers and a massive supply chain where these things are produced in huge quantities in certain areas of the world, usually developing countries, and then they go through middlemen, and then they end up in these big distributors, and they're kind of anonymous about when they were produced and where they were produced and how they were produced and what the production process was. So we want, in some ways, it's an anti-globalization type of business, in the sense of we're trying to bring everything very local and very transparent. And ultimately, I think it's because, first of all, it's better for the consumer, it's a better product, and I think it's something that people are aware of now, and they want to find these type of products, but because of various difficulties and I think the obstructionism of the bigger companies, they're not meeting the consumer needs.
I've been into essential oils for quite a few years. I don't know too much on them, but I know they have a lot of health benefits. But But I think Cyprus is very unique in the amount of fauna and herbs it has and the quality it has. I've smelled oregano oil from other countries and it just seems a lot more potent here.
Well, I'm not an expert, but I would say that part of the reason, the attraction for coming to Cyprus was that it's been known for its aromatic plants and its medicinal plants since antiquity. And it's documented in books, it's documented in research papers. And up until, I believe, the invasion, when Cyprus lost a lot of its citrus trees that were in the north and in the occupied area, Cyprus was still exporting the highest quality essential oils to perfumers in Europe. I think our vision is to supply the island. Things that used to be or are being imported but actually should be exported from Cyprus. So the first step would be to substitute those things that are being imported that are lower quality than what's produced here. And then with the excesses, we would like to export them.
So you also have not only essential oils, but you've got cold pressed seed oils as well. What's the need for that? And what challenges have you come across in really launching your series? Because there's a wide variety.
A lot of products.
Yeah, absolutely.
So everything that we make, everything with our label on it, is made in Cyprus, sourced from Cyprus, and it's done by us personally. We don't grow the things, but we source them directly and we process them ourselves. I think that the importance of having both lines of oils, and I'm sure your audience knows, even though they're both called oils, essential oils are the volatile components from plants that have a smell and have some function in the plant's defense or reproduction, whereas the oils that are from seeds and nuts, which we cold press with pressure rather than with steam. I think, we started with cold pressing, and initially the first year we did not distill, and there's a lot of demand for essential oils, and because, we're producing not just the products as a raw material, we're also producing things that can be used on skin and things that can be used for the kitchen. And we didn't want to be buying products that we thought we could make better ourselves. It's actually a dream in the sense that I would say our customers, they really appreciate us. They show us a lot of love. They appreciate exactly what we're doing without having to broadcast too much about why we do it and how we do it. They really understand, they're patient. I think there's a lot of demand for this that's not being met in the market. And, the next step for us is to start to share it more with the hospitality sector and bigger customers that I think they know that their customers are interested in things being local. And like you said, that Cyprus is not Iceland. Everything grows here, and people who are coming to Cyprus, the tourists and they're looking for an experience that is extremely local. And so we look forward to sharing our work with some of those like-minded hospitality projects and others as well.
I mean, Cyprus, Jared, has been traditionally for thousands of years almost like Constantinople was, the crossroads of trade, right? We're in between three continents. The island has been battered for a few hundred years. Always there's been an empire that's come through here. We had 400 years of Ottoman rule, and then we had an amazing 14 years of independence after the British rule. So sadly, a lot of Cypriots have been in that survival mode. So it's amazing to see people coming in and giving them a push, because we do have one of the most richest fauna in the whole of Europe. It's very high quality things that you're creating. So you've seen a positive response from the people, yes?
Well, I want to say that, it's and I've spent now more time here, and I completely understand the mentality. Every country, including the United States, has its programming. I also dealt with, in some ways, the people I worked with in Gulf countries, it was very hard to earn their trust. I think it's what happens to people after you win the lotto. All of a sudden you don't really trust anybody because you don't know their intentions. And I think Cyprus has some of the same programming, understandably, because of the history. It's not very trusting of outsiders. And now the country's made a strategic decision to open up a bit, either for labor purposes or to fund the government budget by letting in wealthy people. And I think, like any country, a little bit of discernment in that process would probably benefit Cyprus. And I think we've seen it, not that we had any expectations that we would be given a bunch of free money and free visas and a red carpet, but you can see how the system is designed and who it's designed. And I think Cyprus undervalues itself. And maybe I think also because people had a hard life in villages, working from the land and defending their independent lifestyle. I think people look at that, the times of the donkeys and taking 3 days to get, they don't look at it with a positive nostalgia. I think there's a lot of honor in the work that was done and the products that were made, and there's a way to, without going back to that harsh lifestyle, using modern technology, but still some of the wisdom and some of the traditions. And frankly, that's exactly what we're trying to do here in Liven. We use the most modern equipment and modern techniques when we can and when we should, but we try and integrate things like the traditional baskets because they're simply better than the plastic buckets. It's a practical decision.
There's so much wisdom in our past. I remember my grandma, from my mum's side, only finished year 4. So from a world perspective, you could call her uneducated.
She didn't waste her time and
no, she didn't.
Advanced degrees.
Well, it was a necessity that they needed hands because they were farmers.
Yeah.
But from a knowledge perspective, the wisdom she had was unbelievable. And then my granddad, her husband, was also a farmer. The orange trees were literally on the border of Morphu, our village, missed it by half a kilometre of that green line. It was tough for them though. It was tough, and it still is a lot. I think it's a dying industry and it's sad, but there's a new generation of people like yourself coming out and really pushing forward with it. There can be a really promising future for it.
Well, I think that what's really attractive, and I know other foreigners feel it as well. I mean, in Western Europe and the United States and the UK, this connection with the grandparents' generation that was in touch with the land and knew the rhythms of the land and the seasons and lived sort of very close to nature, that generation is gone 100 years ago. And there's no way to get it back. I mean, people are trying to get it back now with books and YouTube videos, and it's like, the United States, they try and, access the Native American wisdom about plants, but there's nothing like that unbroken oral traditions where people taught, from parent to child, the cooking, the medicinal, all of that. And in Cyprus, you haven't quite lost it yet. Yeah. And I think that's something it was attractive to me. It was the same in Oman when I was there. They've developed last. And unlike the other Gulf countries, they hadn't lost that connection to their traditions of living in that harsh environment for centuries. Once this is gone, you can't very easily access it again. And I think that's a national treasure of Cyprus that is worth preserving. Absolutely.
There's an idea for a podcast. Someone go and interview all the older generations and capture all of that, right? All of that wisdom and experience. Sustainability is pretty big for what you do, right? And the first time I've ever heard of upcycling. No. I never heard that before. So tell us a bit about that. You're using a lot of materials that you're getting from local suppliers in agriculture?
Well, I say initially it was very much a business strategy because I was in Oman, and agriculture is a very traditional sector in any country, and it's family businesses. And it's, people's personal land ownership. So I said, well, what can we work with that nobody's going to argue and no one's going to try and take from us? So I said, well, let's do something with the waste. And in Oman, we started to work with the date seeds because they had tons of it that were just being thrown away. We sort of followed the same approach here. When I got to Cyprus, I went to, on my first visit, I went to Nikki Sweets in Agros. I went to her son and said, well, what do you throw away? And could I have it? Could I buy it? And so, it turns out they had a lot of pumpkin. They actually had 5 kilos of pumpkin seeds there ready, which they didn't want, and they gave it to me. I brought it back to Oman, and I made the oil there. And I got prickly pear seeds. I saw that Cyprus had a lot of waste. So I think some of it is a business strategy and some of it is just that it's a logical source for raw materials. For example, almond oil is very popular in spas for massage, but that requires the use of land. And it's also, if you use it for that, you're not using it for food, you're not selling them as nuts. But there's plenty of oils like apricot kernel, which are from the same family as almond. It has the same profile in terms of its use on skin, and it's something that's being thrown away. So it's just a more logical and better use of resources, and the land and the almonds can be freed up for something else. In Cyprus you have like 50 wineries. We've done the study. I mean, the amount of grapeseed that's thrown away every year is a huge quantity. And if I can show you here, I mean, this is the waste from the production of the grapeseed oil. And I know a lot of wineries, they just if they don't make zivania, they throw the grapeseed back onto the fields. Yeah. But the waste that we have from producing the oil is much easier to compost, and it goes into the soil much better. So it's not like we're stealing the compost. Yeah. We're actually, also our waste is something that is useful.
That's amazing. You're working with local different partners to capture some of that.
Yeah, I have to calculate it's somewhere around 20 different suppliers.
Fantastic.
Everything from very, very big suppliers with lots of waste, the big companies of Cyprus and the agricultural production, going to the medium-sized producers like Nikki Smeets, and down to individual people who in their houses or on a small scale, like there's a family in Pisuri where they're famous for their apricots, so we get from them 100 kilos of apricots. We processed about 2 tons of lemons in January alone, January and February, and it was just people calling us up at the end of the season and saying, we have all these lemons on our family tree and we don't know what to do with it. And so we would take it and we process it for the essential oil, we process it for the oil from the seeds, which we sell to a spa for massage, and then the juice we would give back to them as payment because we have a juicing machine. So nothing was wasted, and it was good for us. We didn't pay for any of the lemons. It was in a purely, which I think is also the old way of doing things. It's a barter situation. We like barter a lot because our accountants don't, but we like barters a lot because there's no room for manipulation. I think a lot of the financial system and the way that money works these days is the basis for tricking people and taking advantage of people. But when you have a barter, if it doesn't work for someone, they're not going to do it. And it has to be adjusted to make sure that it's mutually beneficial by its nature. Aside from making use of ingredients that were overlooked or thrown away, it's also allowing us to give something to someone back, something that's growing or something that they have that they don't know how to use. I'll give you one more example. We have a special product that is our answer to eucalyptus. As many people know, eucalyptus is very good for inhalation. It's one of the more famous essential oils. What people don't know is that most of it is fake, in the sense that it's been produced in the lab. Eucalyptus is growing all over Cyprus. It's an invasive species, thanks to the British. You're welcome to take the leaves and boil them and see how they smell. They don't smell good. You smell a little bit of the eucalyptus, from the essential oil, but we made the essential oil 2 or 3 times. It didn't smell good. We decided to sell it anyway because we wanted people to see that this is the real eucalyptus. It was I think the only time in 3 years in Cyprus we had a customer complaint. Somebody called one of our real estate and said there's something wrong, something must have gone wrong in the production process. And I called them and I explained to them, I said, I'm happy to take it back and give you something else. But once I explained it to them, they understood it. But we decided not to make any more. So what we did is we studied the oils that you can make in Cyprus from plants that have the chemical compound eucalyptol that is responsible for the smell and Vicks Vapor Rub that everybody knows. So we chose 4 plants and we ended up getting them from someone that was just going to prune them in their garden and throw it away. A little bit we harvested by hand. And we produced the oil, and it is one of our best sellers because it's a much more attractive smell. And I think it smells real. The eucalyptus, what they do to produce that oil is they harvest all the prune trees, they let it dry, they distill it, and then they use a chemical lab to remove the smells that are not attractive. So ultimately, it's not a 100% natural product. So for us, we're making use of material that is otherwise being pruned or thrown away. So, and it's still a bit, and I think that's the key, is that it's ultimately a better product, and that's why people are attracted to it.
Excellent. So what's your vision for the next 3 to 5 years for Liven?
Well, the world is changing a lot. I think we're in a period where globalization is going to change and shift, and I think it's going to affect Cyprus as well, and affect also the industry that we're in. I think that the world has always and will continue to always value certain luxury products from different environments, but we're also moving to a phase where things like food and other products that should be made locally for local consumption, either by choice or by force of the world economy shifting, it will begin to balance itself a little bit from what has been in the last few decades. So I think we're going to go with the flow. You know, there is a lot of demand for our products. There are the raw materials available. It's a matter also of how we want to spend our time and energy. And is the Cyprus ecosystem going to be supportive of us? The banks don't fund small businesses. There's a lot of money floating around for this and that. There's big I don't like those EU grants. I think that from what we've seen of the equipment here that's purchased with EU money, it's not being used or it's underutilized. So whatever is happening in that process is making people lazy, or, you know, I don't want to say intentionally sabotaging things. I don't know that that's an avenue that we're going to go down. Will the big corporations of Cyprus support us the way that big corporations in other countries incubate smaller businesses? I'm not sure. I don't know if that's in their DNA here. So I think we're very happy in this lovely workshop. What's important for us now is to build our community. We've spent 2 years, 3 years really on the production and on the supply chain and the raw materials, figuring out what's available, figuring out how to make these products, figuring out what people are interested in, what people's feedback is, what they would like that we're not making. We'll always introduce new products and try new things, but I think we know more or less what it is that are the solid foundation of our business. And now we'd like to share it. And I think we would like to empower. There's so many creative people in Cyprus, in the hospitality industry, restaurants, bars, spas, alternative wellness, massage, aromatherapists, Cypriot and foreign. And we want to find the people that are like-minded to us. And we want to include our customers and our community in the production process to educate people and show them, you know, the work that goes into it. Like anything, like food, like many things, everything sits on a shelf and has all these labels and what it can do for you, but we don't know what the plant looks like, we don't know how it's made, we don't know who makes it. So I think part of our mission now in sharing our work is to show how we do it, why we do it, the intention behind it, how we manage the raw material, how we deal with the plants, and to acquaint people with the hard work that goes into it. And I think we'd like this space to be somewhere where other people can meet like-minded people, where we showcase for a tourist or someone that's not acquainted to Cyprus can come here and discover all that Cyprus has to offer and meet some of our partners, whether it's farms or other people in agritourism or people that have wineries, people that we work with, family businesses, so that they could, you know, make an experience out of it being here in Cyprus and showcase what the island has to offer. We're technically in our soft opening now, and we're trying a few things out. We have a small cafe and a treatment room, and I think we're going to start releasing a schedule of workshops probably for after Easter onwards. And we're going to try and keep this place as busy as possible with people who love nature and love things that are real and just want to be in the company of other like-minded people. Fantastic.
So we've got quite a few individuals in gastronomy involved, whether in hotels, bars, cafes, part of our viewership. And I know we've got a meeting at my restaurant this week to inspire us, but can you share what can some of your products, how can it be used, whether it's in a bar or in the kitchen?
Sure. Well, I would say this, you know, people always ask rightly so. What are the benefits of your product? What's it going to do? Is it going to make me live to 120, fix my back problems, make my wife love me more? I mean, we've gotten every single request. And I say, above all, these things are to be enjoyed. Human experience is the five senses. Otherwise, we would just be ghosts and spirits floating around. We're supposed to enjoy the human experience. So above all, the things we make are for pleasure. What does that mean? That means flavoring. I mean, essential oils, just because it says natural flavoring on the product label does not mean it's an essential oil. And just because it's an essential doesn't mean it's pure. But these are the original and the ultimate flavorings. So they can be used to flavor cocktails. They can be used to flavor baked goods. They can be used to flavor sauces, marinades, and then things that they can be substitutes for the spices themselves in soups or other savory creations, and they can also be used as finishing oils. Things that you would use a dry spice for, but maybe need in a more concentrated form, or you want an extra kick, or you want to give it an aroma that is very powerful. So, and to be honest, part of the fun for us of working with people in the sector, that's not our area. I'm not a cook, I'm not a chef, I'm not a baker. And it's amazing to see the ideas that people have for some of the stuff. And specifically, we're really interested now in how we use some of our byproducts. So the byproduct of the essential oil process distillation is what's called hydrosol. And it's basically a very concentrated form of tea. And so we've started to use that in lemonades that we serve here, in cocktails. We've given it to some people to try and make kombucha. I think there's an unlimited use for some of these. Also for soap making. And then the other byproduct of the cold press process is what people know as alternative flours. So we make almond oil, we have almond flour. We make apricot kernel oil, apricot kernel flour, grapeseed oil, grapeseed flour. So I think that we'd like to see people are using protein powders and all this. It's a bunch of chemicals. Our alternative flours, it's the protein and the fiber minus most of the fat has been removed by our pressing process. And because it's done at a low temperature, it still maintains a lot of the nutrition. So it can be used in smoothies and granola, again, in baking. And we look forward to seeing what your chef and other people in the sector can do with it.
Awesome. Just to finish off, what's been the most rewarding part of your journey so far with Liven, and any final words?
Well, I say this, I had a coming to Jesus moment in 2018. My health was suffering, and I decided I really did not like my career and I needed to switch. And I sat there and said, well, what do I want out of my new career? And the number one thing that came to mind is I don't want to work with assholes anymore. And I say the people we work with they're really great. It's people that you've interviewed, it's people like you, it's people that are like-minded, they have their priorities aligned to what our priorities are. And I'll give you an example. Last Wednesday, I think it was, we've been working really hard, and we had a few deliveries that we had been putting off, and we said, you know what, let's just cancel the production and go to the mountains. We went from one sort of supplier, partner, customer to another, and it was something that I would have done as a tourist. We had a free wine tasting because we were just having wine and discussing business, but they're also friends. We went to a hotel, they offered us a free coffee, and it was something, something that as a tourist you would go and have a coffee and a wine tasting, and this is part of our routine. Now, obviously it's not every day. We still slave here over the machines in the hot and the cold, and work with the seeds and do a lot of cleaning up and other mundane tasks. But really we work with good people. We work with nature. We spend a lot of time in the field ourselves. It's very grounding. And I think it's it's ultimately living a life where you don't feel like you need to escape it. You don't need to numb the pain. Yeah. It's just sort of living, I guess, the way that I would want to.
That's an inspiration, Jared. A lot of lessons and a lot of potential goals for some of our viewers out there. Wish you all the best.
Thank you for having us. Yeah.